All right, so first up, let's do some reverse die cut inking. I am going to take a cover plate die. This is absolutely gorgeous, but I'm going to use the back side, not the side that I used for the die cutting. I'm going to take some Distress Oxide ink and just ink up the back side of that die. I'm using Distress Oxide ink because I'm going to press this onto some black cardstock, and oxides work beautifully on colored cardstock. So I'm using this Speedball Baron. It's a printing tool, but I use it to apply firm pressure on my paper. And then when I pick it up, look at that beautiful little distressed stamped looking background we created. I'll show you close up in just a second. Then I spritz the same panel with water, and then I'm going to put some watercolored cardstock down, press it through, and check that out. You get two beautiful looks. Here's the first, the one we just did, the watercolored look. Looks like I hand watercolored that. And the one to the right just looks like a very distressed print. It's very, very cool. And die cuts aren't cheap. You know that if you've got them. So this is a great way to get a different use out of those die cuts. All right, embossing folder inking. I've got lots of embossing folders. I wanted to see if I could ink it up, but without using the pressure of my die cutting machine. Embossing folders have two sides. One is the emboss side and one is the deboss side. I'm going to ink up both sides using some Concord and 9th ink. So I'm just pressing that ink pad directly onto the inside of the embossing folder. And that is just some regular white cardstock. Now normally I would run this through my die cutting machine with the embossing sandwich, but I wanted to see if I can get a good impression just using my hands. And the Speedball Baron just helped me apply pressure. And I did. I got some beautiful results here. And here's a look at both sides of that. I went ahead and stamped it again the second time so you could see both sides. Two completely different looks with an ink pad, an embossing folder, and your hands. I'm digging it. All right, next up is ink swiping. I just love me some ink swiping. Love it, love it, love it. So this is just regular, again, white colored cardstock. And I'm just going to go and swink. No, swipe. I guess that's swiping and inking together. We're swinking. We're swinking on some inks here. I cracked myself up. And just using different colors, whatever was on my desk. I put a whole bunch of colors of inks out on my desk, and I'm just reaching for whatever was calling to me at that moment. And I just love this background. To take it one step forward, I can flick on some water. It's not watercolor cardstock, but I'm using very little bit of water, so it was okay, and I flicked it on, and then I get those water droplet looks as well. So check this out. Isn't this cool? All right, the next technique I want to show you is brush swiping, similar to what we did with the ink pads, but with a brush. And I am going to use a brush I got in a pack off of Amazon for ink blending. This is one of the smaller, narrow brushes, and I'm just basically picking up the ink on the brush and swiping it down. And I like how a lot of the ink is gathered up at the top, and then it gradually fades away as I swipe down. Just a cool look, super easy to add to a background. That's a watercolored piece that I did a long time ago, and I thought it would look great with just a little bit of something, a little bit of ink, and I think that's really cool. All the supplies I'm using are linked below in the YouTube description for you, by the way. Ink smushing. Smush, 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 smush. I love me some ink smushing. So I'm going to use my Misty to help me this time. So I'm going to take some ink, and I'm going to smush it right onto the door of my Misty. Just whatever colors I'm grabbing here. Do take a minute to subscribe to my channel and click on that notification bell if you haven't already. I did spritz it with some water, and then I'm just pressing some watercolored cardstock there. And I'm using the door to lift it up so I can see through on the other side, so I can see if I've pressed where I want to press, if I need to pick up more ink, put down more ink. It's just helping me show where all my petals of color are. And I love how this one turned out. This one is just pretty. And I'm going to do it again this time. One more time. But I love being able to see through what I'm doing. I'm using more intense colors this time. Typically two colors that when they blend together, they turn into brown. So being able to look on the other side is really going to be helpful here. So I'll press down, and now I can see what's going on, and I can also see that I want to add a little bit more color, right? Where that orange and that purple met, it's not pretty to me. So I'm going to add a little bit of red, spritz it with water, and I can see exactly where I need to apply all the pressure for the color. And this one is actually turned out really cool too. So I can do something fun with that, stamp a background image, die cut, whatever I want to do here. It's good to go for when I'm ready to use it. All right, let's move on along. We got some faux watercoloring. I love to freehand watercolor. I'm practicing a lot, and I'm not the best at it. It's a talent for sure. But this is a great way to just like wow your recipient. So I'm taking a sticky note and folding it in half, and that's going to hold my paper in the MISTI because I'm using an entire background stamp here. And if I was to use the magnet or anything, it would cover up part of the paper that I want to stamp on. So the little post-it note is perfect for me. And I'm going in with different color inks and just inking up this background stamp here from Catherine Pooler. And the key to this is just making sure your stamp is fully covered with ink. I'm going to miss a couple spots here, but that's okay because I'm using the MISTI stamping tool. Not a big deal. So I can see where I missed, then I can go in with the same color or add in a different color or whatever I want to do and go in and add the ink. So I'm adding the ink and then I am doing a little spritz of water, by the way, in case you didn't catch that the first time. I'm going to do it again. That was with Catherine Pooler inks. Now I'm going to do the same thing, same stamp, but this time I'm going to use Concord and 9 inks because I wanted to test them out and see how they reacted with water. So obviously if you're using any inks in water, you want to make sure that they are water-based inks, so they work with water. So here I am just inking up, spritzing with water and stamping. I can see I didn't get the best impression the first time, so here I'll go in, add a couple different colors, and I didn't want to stamp it all at the same, ink it up at the same time rather, because I didn't want to mix ink in my stamp pad. So doing it one at a time is great, and using the MISTI, of course, is very helpful because the stamp will never move out of place. So now I'm going to take both those panels and I'm going to spray them a little bit more with water so the ink starts moving around. So it is important to use watercolored cardstock for this particular technique. And I'm just watching the ink move around, and then I set it aside to dry. And let's take a close-up look at these two backgrounds here that I created. Very pretty. The Catherine Pooler ink seemed to be more drastic as far as when I add water to it versus the Concord and 9th. But they're both very, very pretty. Depends on what kind of look you're going for. This reminds me of a watermelon. But I love this faux watercolored look. All right, the next technique is faux shading. This is a great way to easily add some shading with your inks. I'm not the best with marker coloring, so why not grab out those ink pads? We've all got them. So I'm using my MISTI again for perfect placement. I'll go in, I'm just illustrating on a solid color stamp here. So I'll ink up this image with some yellow ink. I'll make sure to cling my stamps in between because I don't want to get other ink on my ink pads. And then I'll go in with a darker color, and I'm taking one of those blending brushes and just adding some color around the edges. I'm using an orange color here. You want to use a darker color or a deeper color than what you're using, and check that out. Check out that beautiful shading you got in just a few seconds, just by adding a little bit of color. All right, let me show you again. I'm going to ink up the word smile here with some red ink. Just wanted to make sure you could see it. And then I'll go and use the same technique. I'll add a brush, and I'll use some brown this time. And I'm adding it around the edges here. And then I'll go and stamp. And then I've got some instant shading here that took very, very, very little effort, I gotta say. All right, ink blending, we all love it, we all do it, so of course I had to incorporate this into my video. This is an image that I stamped already with some brown ink. It's an image from Gina K. Again, everything I'm using will be linked below in the visual supply list for you. So I'll just do some traditional inking. This just is like a forest. These are birch trees actually, but I decided to make it like a beautiful forest. So I'm going to go in and just add a bunch of colors. I am using different company ink pads here. I'm blending in Concord and 9th, Catherine Pooler together. When I use the ink blending tool, I typically, unless I'm going from a very drastic change in color, I tend to use the same brush. I just have a paper towel there and I just kind of scrub the color away on the paper towel like so to remove the color before moving on to the next color. It's just because I'm too lazy to switch brushes. That's the God's honest truth right there. So then I decided to go in yellow, orange, and then add a little bit of red in the center. And I've got this beautiful ink blended soft background here. Last up is edge distressing. This is something that I love doing, but I haven't done it in a long time. You take your ink, you take any kind of blending tool that you have, and you go around the edges with the ink, and it just completely changes the look of the card there. Those are some florals I freehand watercolored eons ago. Time to pull this together in a card, and I thought I would create a little, I don't know, little halo look with some blue right around the edges here. This is Distress Oxide inks. Any inks that you have will work for this. Any kind of blending tool you have as well will work for this. And no time. That seems, I keep repeating myself, little or no time at all. How many times have I said that today? But it's true. Just your ink pads. We've all got them. We've all got tons of colors, probably, tons of different brands. Grab them, pull them out, use them in different ways other than just inking up stamps. The sky's the limit, really. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.